So when last we left Girl Squad, they had just entered the main bandit complex deep within the Cloakwood forest. And like I ended the video last time, they start to descend into this mine. And they notice as they get into the mine that uh, the walls and just the structure itself is more dwarven made than anything. Kind of like an old dwarven ruin. So they get to the bottom of these stairs, and it comes out into this one chamber with kind of comes out to a balcony with two more staircases just kind of going down. And so the three of them head down, and as they get past that first chamber, they don't notice any guys or anything at first. And as they get past that, it comes out to this kind of this ruined, or at least the railing on the side, this ruined bridge, and on each side of the bridge is kind of just like this massive drop off. They can see some light coming down from the bottom. They can feel a little bit of heat coming from down there. They can't. They can kind of, if they did look off to the side, they could see what looks like lava down there, but they can't really tell how far down. So immediately on this bridge to the right of them is actually off, like in between this gap is another balcony area. So they continue on past the bridge, and it kind of continues, and there's a door off to the right, and so they go up and try the door, and it is locked. And they try to get it open at first, and they are not successful. So they continue on, and they notice at the very end of this passage, it just kind of dead ends. But the passage itself, it looks like it was much bigger because the walls, or at least part of it, had collapsed on itself. And the party starts looking around and to see if they can find a way through. And Rowan notices that there's one small itty bitty place that she can actually fit through. Taveri and Divya, they can't. But Rowan can. So she decides, okay, that she's going to go on the other side of this wall, see what's up. So Rowan does, and Taveri and Divya, I forgot to mention, they also have their, Divya has her bandit buddies that she has animated dead, raised from the dead or whatever. And so they're there as well. So Divya and Taveri, they decide to double back towards the bridge, and they start looking towards that balcony area. I'll cut to Rowan with this. So Rowan makes it to the other side of that wall. And forgive me as I'm looking at I might be looking at the map a lot during this video, just for reference. So yeah, she makes it to the other side of this wall, and it comes out to just a long, the ceiling is pretty high, just like a long kind of large corridor leading further down. And it goes on a good ways. Immediately to her left and right are doors, and both actually seem to be open. And so she decides to go to the door to the right first, and starts looking around. And as she enters, it kind of comes out to this kind of cavern passage, and it has along the ground, it actually has some mining cart railway, like a railway system, kind of going throughout. So she starts looking around there, and again, on parts of in this cavern, there's some drop off as well, and again, more of that heat and lava coming from below. So that's what's going on with her right now. We cut back to Taveri and Divya. They are kind of looking at this balcony. Taveri, thinks she could probably, get all of them over, like fly them over to that balcony area. And but they decide, they have their 4 bandit buddies with them. And so she decides she's going to carry one of them over, and Divya's going to direct one of them to kind of explore for them. So she carries over who they had gave a nickname to, and the name is Smalls. So they carry Smalls over to the other side, and and Taveri comes back to where Devia's at. And as Smalls, the bandit, enters in the next section of room, um, there's a statue kind of off to the right. And as Smalls enters in, he triggers a pressure plate, and a fireball comes shooting out right at Smalls and explodes. And so Smalls, the bandit, is instantly killed. So it makes this gigantic racket. And Taveri and Devia is funny at the time. They kind of both go kind of wide-eyed, kind of start looking around and see if they see any movement. Rowan, we come back to Rowan, she hears it go off. And at this time, she hears, coming from that other doorway across from the large hallway, she hears some movement and what sounds like more bandits coming to check it out. So she decides to kind of get as far up against this wall as she can and basically roll stealth. And so she lies in wait, and this bandit comes in, and she's just lucky enough to not get noticed by this bandit. So the bandit just passes her up, and the bandit's kind of looking around. He's kind of getting on some of the railway, and so Rowan has the bright idea to, all right, she's going to just kind of go up to one of them. She's going to sneak up to that one, and she decides she's going to push him over the edge. So I have her do a strength check, and she does it with ease. So the bandit just gets pushed right off the edge, and he kind of screams as he goes down, and he hits that lava below. And at this point, Rowan can also hear another bandit coming from that same doorway across the hallway. So she again tries to stealthily kind of get up against the wall. And once again, another bandit walks through the door, passes her right up. And once again, Rowan pushes him off the edge as well. So we cut back to Taveri and Devia. They both hear this go on, and Taveri decides that she's going to take the chance and fly back over where Smalls was, the corpse of Smalls is, and kind of investigate. So she starts to look around. Because the trap was triggered already, no other traps go off. So she kind of rounds the corner, just kind of makes like a little small U shape, and she can tell the door that was locked where Devia's at is right there. And so she decides, she tries to get it open from the side she's on, and she actually, let me think, I pretty much had her do, there was like two series of switches she could push or flip or whatever, and she basically had to guess the right one. And so after kind of debating about it just for a few moments, she presses one of them and she guesses correctly, and the door slides right open, and Devia and the rest, and the her three other bandit buddies come right on in. And so Taveri and Devia start going down. There's kind of a passage off to the side in that room. They start to go down, and it kind of loops around, again making like another U shape. And as it loops around, it actually comes out to where it starts to make that railway, and it comes around where Rowan's at. So the party, they successfully meet back up again, and Rowan kind of explains, because Taveri and Devia, they both heard the screams of those bandits and were really worried about if Rowan had gotten herself into trouble. But Rowan explains that she just kind of pushed them off the edge. So they, after regrouping, they come out to where, back to that main passageway. And so now they have, they could either go through that doorway across the hall or just keep going on down. So they decide, well, Rowan tells them that the bandits that she dealt with came from that passageway right across the hall. So they decide they're going to actually keep going down the large dwarven corridor. So they continue on down a good ways, and I forgot to mention this, but the mine itself is pretty lit up. It actually has some working lights and whatnot along the walls, so they can see pretty much all the way down. And so they continue on, and eventually they get to two more doors towards the south, and again, one's off to the right, one's off to the left. The one off to the left is actually completely sealed. They try to pick it open, but to no avail. So they decide to go off to the door to the right. It's completely open. It leads to down this other passageway. And they, I want to say Rowan decides to take the lead on this one, and decides, as they go down this passageway, there's it dead ends and comes to a door to the right. So Rowan decides to go up to that door and peek through it. And as she peeks through it, she sees two regular bandits and a hooded fellow kind of standing in front of, you could say, this what looked like an altar at the time. And off to the right-hand side, there's actually three statues kind of lining the wall. So Rowan quietly shuts the door again. She relays this to Divya and Taveri, and they decide, okay, the cloaked individual, that could be this Devoran guy, that from the note that they found back at Tazok's camp. So they decide, okay, let's try to come up with a trap for them. One of us will make some noise and lure them out. And Rowan decides she's going to place down one of her bear traps right kind of in that passageway as they're going to come out. So, and Taveri gets ready with her quarterstaff, and Divya gets ready with her bandit buddies. So, I can't remember who it was, but one of them actually makes a good enough distraction to make the noise and whatnot. So the three individuals start to come out of that doorway. The door opens and they start coming out of that hallway, and immediately one of the bandits actually gets caught in Rowan's bear trap, and so he screams out in pain, and the other bandit's kind of trying to help him get free as the other cloaked individual comes out of that hallway as well. And so at this point, Divya starts unleashing some arrows, and her bandit buddies start charging into attack, and Rowan starts to fire her arrows as well, and Taveri's getting up there with her quarterstaff, and Rowan easily takes care of kills the one in the bear trap. Taveri starts to engage the other bandit. Divya's trying to work on that cloaked individual. The cloaked individual, he's a mage, pretty obvious, and he decides he's going to try to cast sleep on the party. So he tries to cast sleep, and he fails very badly. And so I think he couldn't even get another spell off before Rowan / Taveri just kind of tear him up. They don't kill him just then. They kind of make him just kind of go down, and Taveri just kind of has him at her mercy. And Divya takes care of that last, shooting off another arrow, taking care of that last bandit. So after this, the group decide they are gonna, question this cloaked individual, and they immediately ask him, "Are you Devoran?" And he says no, and the whole group, not believing me, they decide to roll insight checks on this guy. But they come to find out that he's indeed telling the truth, that he is not Devoran. And he actually says that Devoran is on a couple levels below, further down in the mine. And he specifically states that Devoran's on the 3rd level. So obviously they're on the 1st, so they have to go down another level and another level. So the three of them kind of come to the agreement that after talking to him for a bit, they don't find out really any much more information from him. So they just agree, all right, they have no further use for him, so they kill him on the spot. So I want to say, if anything, Devi, I think, did the killing blow. They start to go through their belongings, and they actually find a key on the cloaked individual, the mage. And so they kind of figure out that, hey, that's probably the key to this door just right over here. So they go up to the door, and it fits right into the lock, and open it. And now, before, like, as they open the door, it comes out to this large staircase that just kind of goes around in a circle, descending deeper down. Before they go down, though, they decide they're going to go back to the room those three guys were in and see what it's all about. So they open it up, and Devia decides to send in her bandits first to see if they trigger any traps, and they don't. So the rest of the group, they enter in. The three statues on the walls, they realize, or notice, not realize, but notice that they're dwarven statues, and each one of them has a different weapon in their hand. And they start to check out this, what I mentioned before, that altar. And on closer inspection, it's actually not so much an altar, but sort of like a final resting place. And there's actually a inscription on the sarcophagus that says, "In honor of Lady Indira Lathan, who died to protect our king, may her elven soul find rest." So, and there's also another inscription, pretty much another, like a riddle they have to solve if they want to open this thing. So after debating on this for quite a while, they decide, okay, they're going to try to open this thing to see what's in it. And they, after kind of doing some work on it, they successfully solve this riddle and open the sarcophagus. And what they find inside is, that of an elven, elven woman's body, and they actually find her armor inside. And specifically, it's I want to say, I know the name of it, obviously, but I want to say it was some leather armor +2. Forgive me, I don't have it right up in front of me, but I'm kind of getting it confused either if it was leather armor +2 or studded leather. But I think it was leather armor +2. It really doesn't matter. It's just, flavor-wise. So Rowan actually inspects the armor and after looking at it, she finds out that this armor in particular is called the Protector of the Second. And it's obviously this elven woman's armor. So after some debating, Rowan decides that she is going to hang on to this armor. Oddly enough, it's actually not quite as good as the armor she has on right now, AC wise, but she decides she's going to still hang on to it all the same. So the party, after looking around this room, they decide they're going to head down that flight of stairs, and as they do, they get to the second level of the mine. And as they come out, they're greeted by two enormous, large dwarven statues, kind of with pickaxes in their hand. And as they come out, it opens up into this large chamber, and off to the right-hand side, there's some towers, you could say, some metal towers, and pretty much what's filled in them right now is some lava. And on closer inspection, they kind of come to the conclusion that this is pretty much a spot where a lot of the iron ore kind of gets smelted down, and they make the iron and whatnot. So as they turn to the left, though, it kind of opens up in this large chamber, and there's a gap in the center of this chamber with three bridges one off to the left, one in the center, and one off to the right. And in between the gap is some more lava. And they start looking around. They also notice off to the right, to the far right, some more bandits just kind of chatting it up to the far right. So they decide that they're going to kind of go off to the left, see what's over there, and they don't go off. They don't. They don't cross any of the bridges just yet. But to the in the left-hand corner, they actually find what looks like an ancient dwarven elevator. And so the party, they kind of talk it over with themselves, thinking like, well, I mean, the guy said he's on the third floor, or the third sub-level. So they decide, well, the heck with going across all these bridges, let's just go down this elevator. So Divya is the first one to go on, and followed by Rowan and Taberi. And forgive me as I'm trying to pull up this map right now. There it is. Sorry. So they head down this elevator, and this elevator goes on for a good ways, and it eventually stops, and it comes out to this another large passage. And this time it actually has, for a light source, some some white crystal kind of lining the walls. Not many, but just a few here and there. And it kind of makes this curved shape kind of going around, kind of half circle. Yeah, think of it as a half circle. So the three of them, by the way, they start to head through this passage, but a side note, Divya decides to actually release her undead buddies at the time. She didn't want to, basically, because they would have to roll stealth as well, she didn't want to give away their position, so she decides to release her bandit buddies. So they start to go around this passage, and as they do, it actually comes out to this another gigantic chamber, and at the center of this chamber is kind of a platform, and with a little small bridge kind of going to it. Surrounding it is just a massive drop off into nothing. In the center of this platform it kind of has the shape of a dwarven crown in the center. And right before the dwarven crown, there's also like a golden circle. That'll be important in a minute. Just past that is actually two statues. And the statues look to be somewhat, to the party at this time, somewhat kind of like... actually, no, I'll just say because they find this out, that they investigate the statues more, and come to find out the statues themselves is actually of Baphomet, and that's pretty much the god, or kind of deity of all the beast races and whatnot. Like, pretty much, to just give an example, like of the deity of like the minotaurs, ogres, and like giants, that sort of thing. So they find those statues. Just past that is kind of this really fine made dwarven structure with one of those green crystals again. This one though is massive, and it kind of goes up all the way to the ceiling. Probably I would say the ceiling is about like a good 100 to 200 feet high up in the air. So they start looking around more into this room, and they actually come across another inscription. And the inscription reads, "To collect the treasure, one person must go through one person must go through the trial of Baphomet. The others must stay behind and test their might. Kneel in the center of the circle when ready." So the party the three of them, they debate this, whether they're gonna do this. And the circle it's talking about is that golden circle that I had mentioned previously. And so they debate about this, and Devia volunteers that she's going to be the one to take the trial, while Rowan and Taveri, since they're probably the best at combat-wise, they're going to stay behind and see what happens. So, after kind of gathering themselves, Devia kneels in the center of that circle, and as she does, she is immediately teleported. And where she's teleported is she comes out into the center of walls all around her, and on each side, everywhere she looks, is different passages where she could go to. And so pretty quickly she figures out, of course the player can see this, that she's actually trapped in a maze. And as she looks up the walls actually keep going on forever. So even if, say, Taveri would have took this trial, she couldn't, like, basically fly over the walls. The walls would have just kept going. So, and it's pretty dark. Not completely, but it's pretty dark. So the trick is Devia has to go to one of the corners, because I pretty much told the player this, that she has to find one of the corners of the maze, and at each one of the corners it would open up a portal, and one of those portals leads out, and that's how you complete the trial. While this is going on, all of a sudden, cutting back to Devia, or not Devia, I'm sorry, cutting back to Taveri and Rowan, all of a sudden a Minotaur just basically gets teleported right to where they're at and starts attacking them. So Rowan starts freaking out and gets her arrows a-biting and starts shooting off her arrows. Taveri immediately engages with the Minotaur, and we cut back to Devia. She starts running through this maze, and passages are going every which way. The player themselves is freaking out, trying to get this done as quickly as he could. So, cutting back to Rowan and Taveri, they engage this Minotaur, and at one point, Taveri gets pretty badly injured against this Minotaur, kind of, trying to fight it off, and Rowan's doing her best to trying to support Taveri, and cutting back to Devia, she actually gets to one of the edges of the maze, and so she goes through the portal. And as she goes through the portal, it brings her right back to the center of that maze. That was not it. So she again goes off to another direction to try to find this way out of the maze. And Rowan and Taveri, they're still engaged in that Minotaur, and things are looking pretty dire. And again, Devia gets to another corner, and another portal opens up. She goes through it, and once again it leads back to the center of the maze. So the players are really freaking out at this point, and especially when all of a sudden a second Minotaur enters the field. So now we have two Minotaurs attacking Rowan and Taveri, and so they're still engaged in the other one, and I want to say it was actually Rowan that loads two more arrows and fires it at the first Minotaur, and actually successfully kills it right on the spot. So it slams down to the ground, and Taveri rushes over, spends a key point, and engages the other one. So Devia finally gets to the third corner and goes through the portal, and sadly it's not it. So she's teleported right back to the center of the maze. So thankfully there's only one more corner to go, so she starts booking it to that corner, trying to get there as fast as she can, and again at the same time kind of getting lost. So in the process, so Taveri and Rowan, they're still engaged in this Minotaur, freaking out, and Taveri gets a little bit more banged up against this Minotaur, and Rowan's doing her best to support her. I think Taveri, I think if I remember correctly, chugged a few health potions, or at least one greater health potion. So finally, Devia gets to the last corner and immediately goes through the portal without hesitation. And as she does, she's actually teleported right in the center of that platform where Rowan and Taveri are. And as she gets there, the Minotaur that's still left, they hadn't killed it, actually kind of fades away. It just teleports immediately away. So the other Minotaur that's dead, it's still down on the ground. So the party, the three of them, they catch their breath after this encounter. Taveri heals up some more. I think even Rowan got a little bit of damage, so she heals herself as well. Rowan decides that she's going to take the Minotaur horns as a trophy. And so, with the help of Taveri and Devia, they get the Minotaur's horns off of it, and basically are now going to store it and carry it back. So, at this point, the structure where the green crystal is at, it actually opens up into this small, I guess you could say small chamber. It's really not that big, kind of like a cubby hole of sorts. Sorry, and in the inside is actually 3 items that the party find, and one of them is a staff, a magical staff, and Taveri immediately inspects the staff, and it's actually a +2 quarterstaff, and it's called the Staff of Thunder and the Staff of Thunder and Lightning. So with this staff, she's able to cast Lightning Bolt and Thunder Wave once per day. So after that, Rowan, she finds, forgive me as I'm trying to remember this, she finds another bow, and this time it's a bow called, oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank right here. You know what, I'm just going to pull it up, because I do not remember. And I should. You'd think I should. So, if any of my players are watching this, see, I mean, I might have a really good memory, but there's just times I can't remember everything. Let's see, where is it? You know, to just save time, I think it was called like the Bow of Giant Slaying. It's something like that. But essentially what it does, it's a +2 bow, and it normally just does the normal damage. But if anytime you go up against any giants like ogres, any kind of large creatures like that, you get like the normal damage goes up to like, I think it's like 1d10 plus the +2 plus the modifiers, something like that. So, and then Devia finds basically a horn, and the horn is called the Horn of Greyheart, and it looks to be dwarven made. And every time she can use it as a bonus action, and every time she uses it, it takes away 10 health from her, but it actually casts on the party, gives them immunity to all level 1 spells, and I think it also gives +1 to their saving throws as well. So the party are really happy they just got these items. As a side note, it's probably, for this campaign, it's probably some of like the best items they'll come across for it. So they're really happy. So after catching their breath, they decide to leave this chamber. They're still kind of wondering about that green crystal, but they decide to go up back to the second floor. They don't find, obviously, Devorin down here, so they figure, okay, he must be somewhere else. So they head back up the elevator.